All right, we give praise, esteem, and honor to Abba and Shamaim. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach this day. Gonna pick this up in John chapter 5, verse 39. Search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. I come in my Abba's name, and you receive me not. And if another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one from another, and not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Do not think that I will accuse you to Abba. There's one that accused you, even Moses in whom you trust. As you believe Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how should you believe my words? Shalom, Jay. All esteem and praise to Abba and Shamaim in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Peace, brother Nate, man. What's happening, Sean, man? Let's go to number 7 and 84. This was the dedication of the altar in the day that when it was anointed by the princes of Yasharal. 12 chargers of silver, 12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold. Each charger of silver, 130. Each bowl, 70. All silver vessels, 2,400 after the shekel of the sanctuary. The golden spoons, 12 full of incense, 10 a piece after the shekel of the sanctuary. All the gold of the spoons was 120. All the oxen for the burnt offerings, 12 bullocks, the rams, 12, the lambs of the first year, 12. Shalom, brother Mark, man. With their meat offering and the kid of the goats for the sin offering. And all the oxen for the sacrifice of peace offerings were 24 bullocks, the ram 60, the he-goat 60, the lambs of the first year 60. This was the dedication of the altar after it was anointed. And when Moses was gone into the tabernacle of the congregation to speak with him, then he heard the voice of one speaking unto him from off the mercy seat that was upon the ark of the testimony, from between the two cherubims, spake unto him. So we back at it. Can't recall where we stopped at the other night. Shalom, brother Marcus, man. But come over here to Proverbs 20, man. We can start that aspect of the throne. And we're just working from there. I believe that we should be at the building this week, man. So start time, y'all willing, will be at 12:30. Hopefully we get the doors open at 12 o'clock so that we can start at 12:30. So like I said, anytime we at the building, we're going to start no later than 1 o'clock. But we could probably shoot for noon of 12:30, stuff like that. Just being considerate of the fact because we had service that night. So, shalom, Demetri, man. How you been, Brody? Yeah, Proverbs 20 and 28. Mercy and truth preserve the king, and his throne is upholden by mercy. So obviously, because we're talking about the mercy seat or the kapareth, the seat of reconciliation, the seat of atonement, I want you to come to Proverbs 29 and 14. For sure, man. I'm good to hear, man. So I'm gonna give you upholding by definition out of Proverbs 20 real quick. And I give you the definition of throne just because it ain't gonna hurt nobody. So of course your throne is kaseh. That is kaf, samak, and aleph. Seat of honor, throne, seat. Royal dignity, authority, or power. So just understand that the power, shalom, brother Robert, the power of the king is sa'ad, which is the word for upholding. Samak, ayin, and dalet. That's to support or sustain, to strengthen or to comfort. So just understand that the power and the authority of the king is supported by mercy. See, this is important to understand with the aspect of the seat of reconciliation, just so we can have another viewpoint of what Yahushua came to do and what he accomplished, especially considering y'all know the reference to Daniel 9 and 24, you know what I'm saying? Make an end of sins, to finish the transgression, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to anoint the most Kadash. So this is very, very important for us to understand really the significance of the mercy seat, simply because the Ark of the Covenant is talked about a lot, but the mercy seat on top is usually not discussed in any manner of detail. Now, praise be to Yahuwah, we've talked about it in detail on numerous occasions, this is just the first time in a long time that we done swung back round for a zeroed in focus. This is Proverbs 29 and 14. After that, we'll go to Psalm 72. And we'll just be looking at certain things that pertaining to the throne. I know we discussed the cherubims on the throne and why they cover the throne or cover the mercy seat, if you would. So we're going to come back around, look at this again for the establishment of that. And again, remember, Kapareth, seat of reconciliation, the seat of atonement. I know we went through Leviticus 16 with the Day of Atonement, specifically to look at the things as it pertains to that. If we need to go back over it for anybody, we can do that. Proverbs 29 and 14. The Malik that faithfully judged the poor, his throne shall be established in righteousness. Established forever, excuse me. Come over here before we go, let me look at Proverbs 16 real quick. I think it's in Proverbs 16. I won't. That page ain't in this book. Yeah, come over here to Proverbs 16 and 12. But we can make it 10. This is Proverbs 16 and 10. A divine sentence is in the lips of the Malik. His mouth transgressed not in judgment. A just weight and balance are Yahuwah's. All the weights of the bag are his work. It is an abomination to kings to commit wickedness, for the throne is established by righteousness. Now, again, when we look at the seat of reconciliation and the blood that got brought into it, and we look at how Yahushua is representative of the Day of Atonement and can be literally the mercy seat or the seat of reconciliation, because I don't think we took that avenue when we was looking at Leviticus 16, but we could do that. We looked at two things. His throne, or his power and authority is supported by chesed, loving kindness, because I didn't read that definition. Let me read it to you. And what I've been doing this is, and of course y'all remember the whole, and it is chesed, loving kindness, faithfulness, goodness, kindness. Like I said, the reason why we were even going in this direction is simply, conversation I had with my homeboy in regards to Shalom, Mika, that the mercy in the New Testament is the same mercy, grace, and loving kindness that was in the Old. It's just not focused on because people focus on, he executed wrath, he executed judgment and things of this nature. And the aspect of his loving kindness and mercies is just completely disregarded. And just like it's not there. And it's there. You know what I'm saying? Like I can remember when I was young, hearing individuals say like, that's a different God in the New Testament than the one in the Old. And what they're trying to do is make a distinction because they want to make a distinction because they don't want you to get a foundational standpoint of your faith from the Old Testament like you're supposed to. Because these people know what they be doing. You know what I'm saying? They know why they're communicating what they're communicating. Let's come over here to Psalm 72. And after that, I'll read Isaiah 28. So I got my right verse, man. Because I can't seem to see the verse that I'm looking for. Hold on. So Psalm 72 and 1. And this is the aspect of peace, Brother Omar, the executing the judgment, man. Give the Malik your judgments, O Elohim, and your righteousness unto the king's son. He shall judge your people with righteousness and the poor with judgment. The mountain shall bring peace to the people, and the little hills by righteousness. He shall judge the poor of the people. He shall save the sons of the needy, and shall break in pieces the oppressor. Now, we're going to come over here I want to hit this Daniel 7. It just popped in my brain. because we were talking about this the other day. I may hit this particular point because I was talking with a brother, man. You know what I'm saying? And it was a good conversation. And what he mentioned is, let me ask y'all this question. See how y'all answer this. If you are unclean by any reason, is it a sin? Let me see how y'all answer that first. If you're unclean for any reason, is it a sin? And I want you to consider also, I'm asking this because this will be congruent from what we read in Job the other day, Job 14. Now, what I asked y'all ain't got nothing directly to do with the verse in Job 14. When he mentioned who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean, no, not one. But when it comes to this question, is it a sin if you are unclean by any reason? That meaning that whether by means of leprosy, by means of ejaculation, by means of pregnancy, anything of that sort. Jessica says no. Anyone else? Anyone else? Omar says no, just forbidden from certain things. And Brother Nate says no. And all of you would be correct. Civic says no. Because in that conversation we was having, he was like, it's a sin to be unclean. Brother Marvin says no. I'm like, nah. It's not a sin to be unclean. Indeed. So it came up because the individuals, and Jay says no. And Derek says it's not a sin. Some things are uncontrollable. It came up because we were discussing certain things and we were in mixed company. When I say mixed company, it was certain individuals who didn't believe in Yahusha. So just for full clarity. So he mentioned when the woman with the issue of blood touched him. And he was saying, he sinned because he was unclean. I'm like, no, you haven't sinned because you're unclean. Now, I can remember having conversations with people in the past, and you go to talking about how you can live without sin, and the first thing that they'll mention is, you ever been around a woman on her period? That's not a sin, blood. Like y'all need to remember, Crystal says no, you have to remember the definitions for sin, transgression, and iniquity. Iniquity is avon, that is perversity or depravity. Transgression is pesha, that is rebellion. And sin is kata, and that is an offense. You understand? It's one of the definitions. Shalom, Brother Ernest, but there's others. So, yeah, and I'll read the passages in a minute. But like when you unclean, you can't touch holy things. And you can't go in the tabernacle, in the sanctuary, in the mikdash. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Now it says that if you sought to do those things, you would die. And of course, I think we read that in Leviticus 16 in regards to that's correct. And that's what I asked him, actually. I say, so a woman sinned because she gave birth? Because if a woman gives birth, she's unclean. I ain't even go to the menstrual cycle because I ain't even want them. Is it a sin to remain an unclean state? No, I'm not talking about men. We're talking about strictly physically. Because now to be unclean spiritually, that's another conversation. Because I actually mentioned that to him. You know what I'm saying? But not to run him down, but in the aspect of we'll focus on somebody being unclean physically because they touched a dead body, woman on a menstrual cycle, wounds, whatever the case may be, ejaculate, so on and so forth, but not want to deal with the fact that you are defiled inwardly, that you are full of hypocrisy and dead men's bones, that you're full of murder, deceit, debate, malignity, strife, contention, blasphemies, an evil eye, murders, lasciviousness, fornication, and adulteries. And we are cool with that you could be polluted that way. But God forbid you have a menstrual cycle. Oh, you so unclean, I'm abhorred. Like, what is you cool, my nigga? Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, man? What's going on? You understand? Now, let's look the rest of it. I just see the picture because, like she said, not just physically. Yeah, because when the text is talking about unclean in the law, it's strictly talking about physically. 99.9% of the time, it is talking about the admission of bodily fluids. Outside of that, it would be in the presence of a dead body. But for the most part, it is or leprosy. But for the most part, it's the emission of bodily fluids. That's what would make you unclean. You know what I'm saying? And we'll look at, and I think we talked about that in regard to the priest. Like, he couldn't go into the Holy of Holies and be unclean. He couldn't go in there. He couldn't go behind the second veil. And he had to wash himself with water when he went in and wash himself with water when he went out. But I'm mentioning all of that because, you know what? Let me do it now. So, I've been just reading Psalm 72. I think I had one more thing that I wanted to read. I think I already read it, though. I did. But come over here to Proverbs 25. I'm going to show you something. Because Little Tragic called me 25:1 about the same thing. Would it be sinful to now? I mean, it's not a sin if you remain unclean, like physically. It's just certain things that you can't do. But then you'd have to look at those things that you can't do anyway, because there's no holy vessels, there's no shoe bread, there's no any of those type of things. Now I mentioned this, a track called me about the same thing. Is there a woman on a menstrual cycle? Since y'all in the building, where would she go at? We already told y'all, if you're unclean, you just sit in the area where the kids at. And you don't have to come sit in the sanctuary part. You know what I'm saying? They building is a little different. You know what I'm saying? But they got decided to just send them down there because you ain't got to stay to the house. But I'm going to give you a perspective from the book of Hebrews that just came into my mind as I was just having this conversation. It might have popped in my mind earlier, but it might have slipped out because, pause, that's just what happens. But nevertheless, Proverbs 25:1. These also are the Proverbs of Solomon, which with the men of Hezekiah of the Malik of Yehuda copied out. Now it says, I got to find that footage, man. My junk, brush shot footage, man, and that junk didn't open for me. It is the esteem of Elohim to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So I want you to look at conceal a thing. I want you to look at what that means. Because if you remember, kafar is pertaining to atonement, and that's to cover. Now this is sathar, samak, tau, and rash, and that is to hide and to conceal or to hide, which effectively, that is what the atonement is doing. That's what the mercy seat is about, is to cover a thing. Now, thing here is the bar, which is a word or occupation or acts. So it's the esteem of a king to cover your, shalom, Mama Steph, to cover your deeds, which is what the mercy seat is about. That's why it's the seat of reconciliation, because it's representative of him covering your sins. Now, I'm going to get to something as it pertains to uncleanliness, and I'll juxtapose that to something that Paul stated as far as the works of the flesh being uncleanliness, when I juxtapose this to another epistle letter. Verse 3 of Proverbs 25, the heaven for height and the earth for depth, the heart of kings is unsearchable. So when you look at, the heart of a king is unsearchable. When we look at searchable, this here is keker, kat, kuf, and raj. A search, an investigation, a thing to be searched out, an examination. So what can we look at when it says the heart of a king can't be searched out? Come over here to John chapter 20. John chapter 20. This is John chapter 20, verse 30. Many other signs truly did Yahushua in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written that you might believe that Yahushua is the Hamashiach, the son of Elohim, and that believing you might have life through his name. Swing to chapter 21, verse 23 or 22 would make it 21, and 21. Peter see him and say to Yahushua, Lord, what shall this man do? Yahushua said unto him, if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to you? Follow you me. Then went this saying abroad among the brethren, peace, each man. this saying abroad among the brethren, that disciple should not die. Yahushua said not unto him that he shall not die, but if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to you? This is the disciple which testified these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. And there are many other things which Yahushua did, the which if they should be written every one, that I suppose that even the world itself could not contain the books that should be written. Now, with that statement, I'm going to just interject this in because this just came on my mind. Because a lot of people, because we just having this conversation the other day, brother asking about the virgin birth. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something. In theological circles with a lot of Israelites, the virgin birth is a very controversial and hot topic that they like to talk about ad nauseum to the point that I would want to retch in my mouth. You understand? But nevertheless, but in that statement, in that conversation, the gentleman mentioned, now the gentleman was respectful. This was a regular conversation, not nigga conversation. He was like, why didn't Yahushua say anything about a virgin birth? Why didn't the apostles teach about a virgin birth? And the biggest mistakes that individuals make is that they believe, and one thing I told them with these epistle letters is, these epistle letters are not dealing with the things that y'all have an issue with. Because these letters were written to actual assemblies who these men taught, who they served, and they were dealing with issues that those people were facing. Not doctrinal issues and things that you don't understand in the 21st century that you feel like why they didn't talk about it. Because you don't know what the men talked about, because everything that they taught and talked about is not written in this book. Now, I mention that because we just read in two places from the Apostle John that everything that Yahushua did is not written down, because if it did, the world couldn't contain it. And Psalms 40 tell you the same thing. Because individuals don't realize the things that are written for your salvation. But we are so entitled and indignant that we believe that we have the right to know every single solitary detail about everything. Now, in my personal estimation, when a person's mind gets to drifting in that direction, it's because they don't believe the text. Now, Emma mentioned something last night. I didn't have anything cocked and ready to go, unless y'all willing, he put something in my mind to deal with it. And this is going to be dealing with the psychology of why niggas like to argue about the Bible or religious things, period. Because people who are in these theological circles that we are in, now I've given my modern day thought process of why individuals are like this, but I want to make sure that I derive textual things from the law, the prophets, the writings, the gospels, and the epistle letters of why individuals are so contentious and strife-filled, because you can see these type of things throughout the entirety of the text. Now, in general, people draw to drama because drama seems to be exciting, because the reality is most people's lives are dull and boring, and they need the excitement. But then you have things where they come in at because of envy, because of jealousy, and because of covetousness. You understand? When you turn around and you look at them scribes and Pharisees, them men were envious of Yahushua. So that's why they had so much contention with him. When you look at Saul, he was envious of David and coveted the love that David was getting. That's why he had so much strife with him. Now, some people are just strife-filled and contentious people, period. Which is why he told you to cast out the scorner, because some of that strife and contention that people have is drawn to the fact because those people are scorners. They're mockers. They're mockers. That's who they are. I told you, we've turned the word into a sport. Niggas debate the word for pay. Niggas debate the word for likes, clicks, and views. Because don't get it twisted. These people getting paid off these platforms where they do this stuff at. You got biblical reaction channels. See, we've turned around in this modern day time and made merchandise of this man's word. You understand? We done made merchandise of it. We done took everything we can find and put Yahuwah's name on it and sell it. Whether it's doggone conferences, concerts, whatever the case may be. And I'm not knocking anybody who do those things, because I know that these things cost money, you know what I'm saying? But we making merchandise out of people, though. Now, whether you agree with it right or wrong, that's what's happening. You know what I'm saying? Now, me personally, just speaking for me and what I've been able to ascertain in the text, I can't create nothing and charge nobody for it. We not having no concert and you gotta pay. What do you mean you gotta pay? I'm not a music promoter. We're not in show business. If this for the Lord, how can I charge somebody some money at the door for something that you wanted to throw? These people didn't ask you to do that. So if you didn't have the ability as a collective to be able to pool resources, to be able to make that happen so that your God in heaven could be esteemed and that people could be gathered together for the worship towards your God, then it shouldn't be done then. Straight like that. And that goes back into the other point that I mentioned about when we're dealing with the new expense that we have as it pertains to the building. And what I've shown y'all out of the text for years, if you remember a long time ago, we did a deep dive in the fact that the Commonwealth of Yasharal, in modern terms, is a socialistic theocracy. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. By functioning with those modern day definitions. You understand? So that means it's a collective effort. It's it's just these people. It's something that collectively everyone in the body contributes to. So if we're saying that we're making music for the aspect to praise and give esteem to the Almighty Yahuwah of hosts is his name, you know what I'm talking about? Then there's absolutely no conscious and righteous way where I can fathom that I'm going to charge you to be able to participate in that. This is just me personally. This is no disrespect to anybody who does opposite, because it's not about them. Whatever determination they get out of the text to do that, that's their business. I'm just telling you what I've been able to decipher and ascertain from the text. We're not doing that. You know what I'm saying? No, a socialistic theocracy, meaning that Islam is totally different. So when you look at what is it, I know you know what a theocracy is, but for those who don't, theocracy is a government that is headed by a religious leader. So when you turn around and look at Yasharal is ruled by a priest after the order of Melchizedek. He's a king and priest. This is a religious leader. When you look at what does it mean to be socialistic, that means that the elements of the economy in Yasharal is capitalistic, meaning that you can create goods and sell them yourself and set the rate that you want to sell them for and pay people what you want to pay them. But also it is communal, which goes back to what we were talking about in Acts 2 and Acts 4, about they had all things in common, but goes back in what's in the law when you deal with certain, leave the grapes at the edge of that there so the poor can pluck it, and you put money in to take care of the Levites, the poor, the fatherless, and the widows. Those are all elements of a modern day execution of what would be called socialism, which meaning that there's a pooling of resources from the group to distribute to those who don't have it. So effectively, in using a modern day term, because Judaism itself is not a socialistic theocracy in practice in 2026, and neither is Islam, because Islam itself is not headed by a religious leader. Now, Iran was a theocracy because they were headed by the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was a religious leader, but it wasn't a socialistic economy. You know what I'm saying? When you look at Judaism, if you go to the land of Israel, contrary to popular belief, the nation of Israel is a secular nation. It is not a religious nation. There is not a religious leader. We look at the modern day nation of Israel through the lens of the text, and those people don't live like that. That is a secular country with a secular government. So years ago, when I was a worship leader, we were trying to get a concert together. I reached out to gospel and Christian groups who had access to major gospel artists. The money requested to have them perform was more than $10K. Indeed, because they in business. And I said before, I can ask people to perform, and if they ask to be paid, that's their business, but I'm not paying you. Because if you think I'm finna pay you to come do what you say you do for the Lord, yeah, you lying to me, because I'm not paying you. And I'm not knocking you for wanting to be paid. I'm not ridiculing you for wanting to be paid. I'm not going to condemn you for wanting to be paid, but I'm not going to pay you. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to get somebody else to do it, because I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to have y'all pool y'all resources to do it, because I don't have any book for that. and I don't determine according to what we can read in this law and in these prophets and in these writings and in these letters and in these gospels, that that's a righteous thing to do. I don't see it. Now, if y'all went to go perform for somebody and they willing to pay you, that's your business. I don't have nothing good or bad to say. I don't have nothing to say. I ain't got no thoughts about it. But what I'm talking about as it pertains to this assembly in this city, I cannot in righteousness and good faith ask you to pool your resources to pay somebody to come sing and praise Yahuwah. I can't do it. Can't do it. And I won't do it. You know what I'm saying? I won't do it. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Now, what y'all niggas do when I'm dead, that's between you and the Lord. But while I'm breathing, we not doing that. You know what I'm saying? I was telling Travis the other day, you got Israelites have conferences. They charge people to get in. You see a lot of Christians, they don't charge. But why would I charge you to come sit and hear about word or things? I'm not charging you for that. These things supposed to be free. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, he was talking about healing, but Yahushua told his apostles, freely you've been given, freely you receive, so freely give. Even the same thing that Elisha told Benghazi, man, there's a time for money, it's a time to get outfits, it's a time for all of that. It's not the time for that. And of course, he was talking about healing also, but you have to take that into consideration. Same way what Peter made mention of, they making merchandise of you. We're not going to make merchandise of people, man. The word is free. You know what I'm talking about? I'm not going to charge you to get in so you can get it. Praising Yahuwah is free. So I'm not going to charge you to listen to somebody rap or sing a praise to Yahuwah. That's free. And if a nigga got a problem with that, that's more reflective of him. They ain't got nothing to do with me. And I ain't got no hard feelings, ain't no disrespect. You understand? But that just is what it is. I just felt like sharing that. Now I don't forgot where I was going. But come on back over here to Leviticus 15. That'll be fair. And they're talking about being clean. But like I say, when Bruh mentioned that about, because like I say, it was a good conversation. But now we're going to hit on something that you see in these letters. Because being clean in and of itself and unclean is a different thing. So I want you to come over here to Leviticus 15, man. We can pick it up at 25. I might can jump over for that. But now I mentioned, like I said, right, let's say that the expense that we got for the building. Everything in Israel is a collective. Go examine your law. We done went through all this stuff before. Whether it was Leviticus 27, the things in Exodus, Numbers when it comes to offerings, sacrifices, tithes, all of these things. You know what I'm saying? This is a collective effort. And that's why it states that every man gives according to how Yahuwah has increased him. And every man, because it's not equality in offerings, it's equity in offerings, and that's why it's just. Because every man's going to be able to give according to what he has. But the difference is where that come in at, as we discussed many times before, you can't be compelled to give. The compelling is in the law with the instruction. So I'm not supposed to compel you because your God has already compelled you with his word. So if his word is not enough to compel you, then nothing I say is going to compel you, and I'm not finna do it. You know what I'm saying? Like the aspect of the passing around a collection plate, you know what I'm saying? Is that Bible per se? No. But they had a treasury where people put stuff in it. So then you can say, yeah. So, you know, it's splitting hairs, if you would. You know what I'm saying? It's splitting hairs, if you would. So when you look at it from that perspective, you can't be compelled. We talked about that before. I can't tell you you have to give this much. I can't tell you what to give. Can't tell you that. You have votive offerings, you have burnt offerings, you have free will offerings, you know what I'm saying? You have your sin offerings, you have your evening, morning sacrifices, you know what I'm saying? Those things are as far as sacrifices are concerned and laid out. But when you deal with a votive offering, which is a promise or a vow, or you're dealing with a free will offering, that's whatever you determine. And y'all already know your tithes is only 3 times a year, and that's 10% of your increase. Not 10% of your income, 10% of your increase. You know what your increase is. So that's that. You know what I'm talking about? And that's how that rolls. And I told you before, the equity is whether you had 5,000 to give or $5 to give. It's all equitable in the sight of Yahuwah, so it's going to be juxtaposed according to what your increase is. But that's where it come in, Marvel, when you have the socialistic aspect of it, because everybody gathers resources and then they all put it in the pot together for the support of those that are without and for the execution of the house. As forth as you seen, like when everybody gave during David's time for the building of the house. You know what I'm saying? And the purpose of mentioning that is to further kind of give a law point of view of what we were looking at in Acts 2 and Acts 4 about what they were doing and why they were doing it, because they were fulfilling what was actually in the law, which is the people being one. Because that's really what it's about, the people being one. And when we begin to look at each other as one, then we actually will have more power in heaven. But as long as we're fragmented, and I'm thinking about me and mine, my wife, my kids, my house, me, and me, we ain't gonna never have the power from heaven that we particularly desire. For sure. You know what I'm saying? And if we have to revisit that topic, we can revisit it. That the video on here somewhere. I was in Proverbs 25. That's what it was. The video on here somewhere. So we was in looking at the heart of kings is unsearchable. Let me read verse 4 of Proverbs 25. That's what it was. That's what I forgot about. You know what I'm saying? And it's just understanding that, because we all, like we talk about this here, you all members one of another. His scales are his pride, so no air can get in between. You know what I'm saying? We're one. That's how he wanted to look at it, because we interconnected. If I'm doing for you, I'm doing for myself. And if you're doing for me, you're doing for yourself, which in reality you're doing for Yahushua, as you know from Matthew 25. And as it says in Proverbs, he that lendeth to the poor, lend to his maker. You understand? And when we see that and we understand that and we look at it at the front, because that way you understand that it doesn't put, because I've told y'all this before, Yahuwah does not seek to put undue burden and stress on individuals. See, because people have taken that, will a man rob God? And all this other type of stuff, and they've made people feel like it's a burden. What's up, eh? They make it feel like it's a burden. Oh, I got to tithe, I got to give, I got to do this, I got to do that. But when you examine the text, Yahuwah ain't put that type of burden on us. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a collective. You know what I'm saying? So when you have a collective and every man is able to give according to what he has, it doesn't put a burden on anybody. It just doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a collective, and the aspect is not only the burden, but what you see with my hands, you locked in together like this. I know individuals look at it different in this particular dispensation of time because of the proliferation of wicked and covetous men who are hungry and thirsty for filthy lucre. You understand? So I get it. But see, I'm not talking about funds per se for the purpose of funds. I'm talking about the mentality of a cod. You understand? That's what I'm talking about, because that's what we're supposed to be getting to. That was the purpose of the reconciliation on the mercy seat, so that we could become a cod with our God again, and that we can be in cod with one another in him and dwell in everlasting righteousness through the mercy and love and kindness that he exhibited. As he stated when we were looking at, the aspect of his mercy, man. And look, when we were looking at 1 Corinthians 13, man, when he say love don't seek her own, that's exactly what it means. Because if this man say greater love have no man than this, that a man lay his life down for his friends, and he say, if I'm your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, and he say he loved his own even unto the end, and he told you I didn't come to be served, but to serve, he's showing you in action unselfish love that is not self-centered. So we won't enter into part of the perfection in God that we desire until we learn how to stop being selfish. And that's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? And when I'm talking about not being selfish, this ain't talking about with no money either, man. So don't be no goofy. You know what I'm talking about? This is talking about the aspect of I'm thinking about me, and never us and we. You know what I'm saying? It's always me and mine and not the body. That's not the mind of Hamashiach. That's not the mind that God gave his son, and that's not the mind we're supposed to have towards each other, or the effectual working and display of his kingdom on this earth. They're not going to see it. That's why I say, if you love one another as I've loved you, they'll know that you're my Taladim. They will know that I taught you. So then we have to look at, are we displaying what this man taught us, or are we going after our own will? You know what I'm saying? And that's what we just have to weigh and consider. It's not a, as these niggas like to say, this is not to cut, castigate. It's for us to wait and consider so that we can be made perfect and conform to the image of he who has redeemed us from death. Because that's what you should be doing this for, is that you reflect him. So that the same way when Isaac couldn't see and he thought that Jacob was Esau and that was his firstborn son, and he gave him the blessing, so that when Yahushua see you, he see himself, and he give you the same blessing that he got. You know what I'm saying? But if we don't do that, then how is he going to bless us? He said there's no one way that one can be selfish and at the same time consider himself to be a part of the Messianic body. And I don't disagree at all. I 100% concur with that assessment, good sir. Because you can't. We can't. Just no way around it, because that's not what he taught us. You know what I'm saying? So that's just a part of the purging process and the perfection process. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, at least in this life and in this flesh, irregardless of whether it's the assembly of the firstborn, the assembly across the street, the assembly across the country, the assembly in Georgia, no matter where it's at, we all one of another, and we have to be in this thing together, man. But like I said, it's different because of how we are now, because we so fragmented, because we live in different states, versus and in a land that's not ours, versus like when you were in the land, and not to say that everybody executed this like that at that time, to where everybody was there. You know what I'm saying? So, see, living in America, you got infiltration of people who ain't in the word, who in the word, who, you know what I'm saying, this, that, and the third. So the actual implementation of it on a mass scale is not going to be what many of us would desire. But what we can do on a micro scale, that can be accomplished. That can be accomplished. And there's no reason why it shouldn't. Because while we standing in front of these people talking about Yahushua, Jesus, Yeshua, God, Yahuwah, Yahweh, and all these other things, but yet we absolutely, abjectly refuse to be a manifestation of his spirit, his ways, and his character. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make any sense. Why are we screaming about the mercy that he showed, the forgiveness that he showed, the love that he showed? See, I think that's why many don't go house to house for the gospel like Christ. It is because it's different. You know what I'm saying? You know, if you living in the time of the apostles, you know, these all Israelites, these all people who deal with the scriptures, deal with the book of Yahuwah. So to be able to go house to house like that would be tangible. Living in America, you know, you got Christian people and Jehovah's Witnesses, and you don't really know these people like that. Knocking on the door, it's not feasible compared to that time period. And I know a lot of people be wanting to recreate what them people did, but in my opinion, you have to be a little bit more strategic about it. You know what I'm saying? Because we ain't necessarily go house to house when we was in certain places where we lived at and dropped word, but people just knew we was around them. And people we were who were aware, we would pull up on them. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. It's definitely a different time, man. So it calls just for a different execution, if you would. Now, for sure, Omar just seen that with a James 2 and 5. That's a fact. Proverbs 25 and 4. Take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come out a vessel for the finer. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Now, when it says take away the wicked from the king, that his throne will be established in righteousness, let's come over here to Daniel 7, you dig? Daniel 7 and 8, I suppose. Hello. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them a little horn, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. And I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne it was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, and I beheld even till the beast that was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. So I mentioned this here because it said his throne was like the fiery flame. And that's going to take us back to what we read in Ezekiel 10, Ezekiel 1, and Daniel. Not Daniel, but Exodus. What's up, boy? What's up, my boy? Come over here to Revelation 20. Okay. Hey, my boy. You niggas eating Burger King? Burger King. Your mama let me eat horse meat. You're gonna go up and be strong like a mule, huh? You say, but because of verse 10, it was said it was the Father. What verse you talking about? Oh, and then this is Revelation 20 and 11. And I saw a great white throne of him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heavens fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before Elohim, and the books were open. And another book was open, which is the book of life, or which is of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to the works. Now, I'm mentioning that because of the throne. Now, we just heard in Proverbs 25, the wicked take away the wicked from the king so that his throne can be established in righteousness. And we just read a divine sentence comes from the lips of the king. Let me pull that up for you again. In Proverbs 16 and 10, a divine sentence is in the lips of the king. His mouth transgressed not in judgment. Now, understand his throne is uphold. Now, I mentioned and referenced certain things with uncleanness. Oh, I see. So I want you to. Okay. So I want you to come over here to. They ain't doing it. Just threw me off. Galatians 5. Shalom, Sister Jim. Galatians 5, they got what I want. 5 and 13. For brethren, you have been called unto liberty, only use not liberty for occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. That go back to what we were talking about. That go back to even what you see in the law. Because when you look at the law, especially in Leviticus 19 and other aspects, and that again points to what was done in Acts chapter 2 and Acts chapter 4, is that everybody's supposed to serve each other. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, that framework of they had all things in common and all that type of stuff, that's in the law. That's not something that they just came up with. That wasn't something that was just new for that time. That was in the law. That's how it was supposed to be. That's how it was always intended to be. You know what I'm saying? There was never a time period where he didn't want us by love to serve each other. And if you don't agree, go search the law and see for yourself. Because I don't have the time this evening to do it, but I can do it at a future time if the Lord permits. But yeah, go search the law out. And matter of fact, maybe we can do that one day. And just so you can see that Acts 2 and Acts 4 is in the law. It's always been in the law. And the manifestation of you seeing it in the law is the feast days, to be 100% honest with you. The unleavened bread, tabernacles, and all that stuff, that's in the law. Hey, calm down, son. Yeah, come over here, verse 14. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, in this, that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite one and devour one another, take heed that you be not consumed one of another. This I say then, walk in the Ruach, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Ruach, and the Ruach against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would. But if you be led of the Ruach, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these. So one ingestion is using the primary. I don't even know what that means. That stream ain't messed up on y'all, did it? Let me check on something, because this junk just popped up with an error. I don't even know what this means. Oh, this junk done stopped. Oh, man. I thought the junk done stopped, man. But it had started at the beginning. It's just saying there's more than one ingestion is using the primary URL, send one stream to the primary ingestion. I don't know what that means. So I'm just going to keep on rolling. So y'all can tell me what if it's messing up, but I don't know what that error means. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revilings, and such like, of which I told you before, as I've told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the Malkuth for Elohim. Let me give you the definition of uncleanliness here. So when you deal with uncleanliness, it is aka arthasa'ah. All right. It means uncleanliness. Second definition is physical. But in a moral sense, the impurity of lustful, luxurious, profligate living, of impure motives, moral uncleanliness. And that would come into what you mentioned, Crystal. So when it's talking about uncleanliness here, hey, y'all can't come in here with that. Hey, don't come in here with that. So when you look at profligate, it's reckless, extravagant, or wasteful use of resources. So when you're dealing with lustful living or uncleanliness in this aspect, you know, it can line up with covetousness. It can line up with reveling and revilings and things of that nature. That's what it's referring to. So uncleanliness in this instance, at least in the context of Galatians 5, is not referring to the uncleanliness of the flesh. But I want you to come to Leviticus 15 real quick, and then I think we got one of Numbers. This is Leviticus 15 and 25. No, 15 and 24 is fine. Say, if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed wherein he lay shall be unclean. Now, flowers here is nadah, noon, dalet, and hey. It's impurity, filthiness, menstruance, ceremonial impurity, menstruation, and also idolatry or immorality. Now, in this instance, it's uncleanness. Now, this is why I mentioned this here, right? Especially when, what brother talking about, what I mentioned to him, when people talk about, okay, your wife on her cycle, she unclean, and dudes don't realize, you know, you unclean too. Because if you've been in the house with her, if you lay in the bed with her, If she cooked any of your food, if she touched anything in that house, if she sat anywhere in that house and you sat there, you unclean with her. Let me show you that where we can see that man. Make sure I ain't skip over that. And a lot of brothers don't take that into account. They just turn around, look at the woman. You know what I'm saying? But you unclean with her because you in the house with her. She ain't unclean by herself. If she got in the car with you, you unclean. Now I'm gonna leave that to something as it pertains to what you call it. I am trying to think about it. It's just escaping my mind. Oh, I can't help you with that right now. So. Come to verse 19. Ask your mother. This is Leviticus 15 and 19. If I said ask, my bad. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue is her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever touch her shall be unclean to the even. Everything that she lie upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sit upon shall be unclean. Whosoever touch her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean unto the even. Whosoever touch anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean unto the even. If it be on her bed or anything wherein she sit, when he touch it, he shall be unclean to the even. And if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed wherein he lay shall be unclean. If a woman have an issue of blood many days out of the time of her separation, or run beyond the times of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation, she shall be unclean. Let me give you the Hebrew definition for uncleanness here. And here that's tameh. Tet, meme, olive, to be unclean, to become impure, whether sexually, religiously, or ceremonially, to defile oneself, to be defiled, whether through sexually, idolatry, or ceremonially, to be regarded as unclean. Now, ceremonial uncleanness is pertaining to the things like the issue of blood. That's what that's referring to, or a menstrual cycle. This is verse 26. Leviticus 15. Every bed wherein she lie all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sit upon shall be unclean as the uncleanness of her separation. Whosoever touch those things shall be unclean and shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean unto the even. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall be numbered to herself 7 days. And after that, she shall be clean. And on the 8th day, she shall take unto her 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons and bringing them into the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 30 is why people think being unclean is a sin, because you have to give a sin offering. But that's just for ceremonial uncleanliness. It's not because you committed a sin. The priest shall offer the one for a sin offering, the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make atonement for her before Yahuwah for the issue of her uncleanliness. So also because people see that atonement, they go to thinking, okay, this is a sin. And again, then now this one here for uncleanliness is tumah, tet, meme, aleph, and hay, uncleanliness, sexual, filthy of math, ethical and religious, ritual or local of nations, impurity. Now, with that being said, verse 31, thus shall you separate the sons of Yasharal from their uncleanliness, that they die not in their uncleanliness when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. And that's where they come in at, because if they would have went into the tabernacle at that particular time, it would have defiled the house and they would die. I want you to come over here to Numbers 9. Is it Numbers 9 that I need? Make sure it's number 9 that I need. Might be the wrong spot. Make sure. I was just looking at it the other day. Now I can't remember what's that. Numbers 19. I'll come over here to number 19. So we're in Numbers 19. We can look at verse 1, number 19 and 1. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, this, the ordinance of the law which Yahuwah commanded, saying, speaking to the sons of Yasharal, that they bring a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish. This will go back to what we were reading in Leviticus 16 last week, which never came yoke. And you shall give her unto Eleazar the priest, that he may bring her forth without the camp, and one shall slay before his face. Eleazar, I think I ain't paying attention. Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger and sprinkle of her blood directly before the tabernacle of the congregation 7 times. The same thing that we read in Leviticus, which is putting the blood on the mercy seat 7 times. This fourth is for reconciliation. One shall burn the heifer in his sight, her skin and her flesh, her blood with her dung shall he burn. The priest shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer. Then the priest shall wash his clothes, he shall bathe his flesh in water, and afterwards he shall come into the camp, and the priest shall be unclean until the even. And he that burned her shall wash his clothes in water, and bathe his flesh in water, and shall be unclean until the even. And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer, and lay them up without the camp. That's the same thing we seen with the scapegoat, in a clean place. And it shall be kept for the congregation of the sons of Yasharal for a water of separation, for it is a purification of sin. Now I want you to look at when you see a water of purification. Now you notice that a lot of these things point to baptism. When you see this thing with pertaining to the waters, I ain't really locked in to focus on that this evening. We'd have to double back on that. But when we look at water separation, you have Mayim Nadab. And this is the water of, again, impurity or filthiness. This is the water that make one clean. Let's pause, though, and we could turn around and look at this in regards to 2 Peter chapter 2. Or is it 1 Peter? Let me make sure. It's 1 Peter chapter 3. First Peter chapter 3. I make it verse 18. For Hamashiach also have once suffered for his sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to Elohim, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Ruach, by which also he went and preached unto the Ruachs in prison, which sometimes were disobedient, when once the long suffering of Elohim waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls were saved by water. The like figure whereunto immersion do now also save us, not putting away the filth of the flesh, but the answer of a good conscience towards Elohim by the resurrection of Yahushua HaMashiach. Now, coming back to Numbers, what you see consistently with the water is for the cleansiness of the flesh. But of course, from a spiritual standpoint, baptism doesn't put away the filthiness of the flesh. We just read that you should walk in the Ruach and not in the flesh, because the flesh war against the Ruach and the Ruach against the flesh, and you can't do the things that you ought, or to watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. For the Ruach is willing, but the flesh is weak. So with that being said, when we look at this water of separation, or this water from uncleanliness, that's what baptism represents. It's the water from of uncleanliness, or the water to purify the mind or the conscience, which of course he said, if the sprinkling of the ashes, I'll read it in Hebrews 9. Let me give you this definition for purification, because I'm about to say what Hebrews 9 wrong, so I'm going to have to read it. So the purification here is just simply the word kata, which you know is a word for sin, also the condition of sin, guilt of sin. But in this one, it's the purification from sins of ceremonial uncleanliness. And see, that ceremonial uncleanliness refers to that menstrual cycle, that issue of blood, that ejaculation during copulation. That's what that's referring to. These are things like I just put in there earlier. You're going to be unclean. This is from childbirth. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is going to pertain to something we're going to read in Hebrews 9, because just like I mentioned, like as a man, if your wife unclean and you in the house with her, you unclean too. There's no way that you can be in the presence of someone who is unclean and then you not unclean and you sitting in there with them. There's no way around that. They say in these days, the uncleanliness issues is still lawful, just arbitrary. But it's not even, we're going to get to that because there's something in Hebrews 9 that speak to that. You know what I'm saying? Because you can still have all these issues and you could do that, but Hebrews 9 speak to that. And we done read it so many times. And the fact that it didn't pop into my brain until the other day, well, shoot, right now, honestly, about that particular thing, because we ain't sat and talked about uncleanness in a long time. It's been a long time since the last time I think we talked about it was Leviticus 15. But come over to Hebrews 9 and 13. I make it 12. Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered once into the Kadash place, having obtained eternal redemption. For if the blood of bulls and of goats and the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctified to the purifying of the flesh, which is what we just read in Numbers, how much more shall the blood of a Mashiach, who through the eternal Ruach offered himself without spot to Elohim, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. Now, we've read that verse a lot, but now you see, peace, Brother Joseph, man. Now you see a juxtaposition that if this heifer that's being killed and the ashes make you clean, should not the blood of a Mashiach make your conscience clean? Which is what we just read, what Peter told you, that baptism doesn't put away the filth of the flesh, but a good conscience towards God. So this is giving us an understanding of where we're at with things. And when we read this other passage in Hebrews 9, it'll be completely clear. But let me continue. In Numbers 19, I should say, verse 10. And he that gathereth the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. And it shall be unto the sons of Yasharal and to the stranger that sojourn among them for a statute forever. He that touched the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day. And on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean. Whosoever touched the dead body of any man that is dead, and purify not himself, defile the tabernacle of Yahuwah. The soul that shall be cut off from Yasharal, because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him, he shall be unclean. His uncleanliness is yet upon him. Now, this goes into the aspect, okay, if you didn't cleanse yourself and you went in the tabernacle, you would defile the tabernacle, and therefore you would be unclean. Like I said, because we were talking about this the other day. Now, I'm going to keep on reading, then I'm going to get to the spiritual point of view of that, and then we'll get to Hebrews 9. So what I'm going to do is when I finish reading this Numbers 19, I'm going to reread verse 13 again. Then we're going to go grab something in John, because I've already mentioned Mark when he say, hey, it's not what defile a man, what not to go into a man that defile him, but what come out. Because I know we were talking about it in 1 Corinthians 3, when he said, if you defile the temple of Elohim, Elohim will destroy you. Because that's what Crystal was referring to. And that's why I had to make the preface of the law is referring strictly to physical or ceremonial uncleanliness and not the uncleanliness of the spirit and the mind. But when we get to the aspect of what the understanding of what these things were pointing to, because this washing of purification is pointing to immersion, like we just read what Peter mentioned, and we're going to read something in Mark 16. And again, I'll reread verse 13. Because all these things pertain to what the mercy seat is about, which is the covering of these things. Because we just read, it's the glory of a king to conceal a matter. It's a glory of a king to conceal actions, to cover that up. That's what his atonement did. It covered things up. That's his desire. You know what I'm saying? Hold on. There's another passage in Proverbs that just came to my mind. Hold on. Proverbs 17:9. When he say, he that cover for transgression seek love. He that conceals rebellion seeks love, which is what the mercy seat is about. The seat of atonement is about covering the transgression because he seeks your aha. Which is why he say, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay his life down for his friends. So I'm going to reread this Numbers 19 and 13. Whosoever touch the dead body of a man that is dead and purified not himself, defile the tabernacle of the Yahuwah, that soul shall be cut off from Yasharal, because the water of separation was sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. His uncleanness is yet upon him. This is a law when a man die in a tent, and all that come into the tent, and all that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. Listen, if somebody died in your house, if you was in a hospital room and somebody died, you unclean. Whoever in there unclean. That's how that works. And this is why people always mention that about oh, you always sin because you always around somebody who unclean. You know what I'm saying? That's why people mention that. That's why they mention that. And they mention that for a reason, because remember it said, blessed are those who are undefiled in the way. So being undefiled in the way is in the aspect of being undefiled in the Darak. That's Psalms 119. I'll get in a second. I'm getting okay. Verse 15. Every open vessel which have no covering bound upon it is unclean. Whosoever touch one that is slain with a sword in the open field, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. So listen, if you went to the cemetery, you unclean 7 days. For whatever reason you went to the cemetery for, don't matter. You unclean for a week. And for an unclean person, they shall take the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. Listen, ain't nobody got no red heifer to make you unclean, to make you clean in these situations. There isn't one, but I can show you one. Come over here to Luke. Well, matter of fact, you can go to Matthew, because I'm already in Matthew from where I turned the page at. Matthew chapter 27, verse 27. Remember, programming note, man, y'all willing, man, we're going to start on Shabbat day, man, 12:30, man. 12:30. Y'all willing, I'll double check. I put it in the group chat, man, to confirm that the doors can be open at noon. But we're going to start at 12:30, man. Then the soldiers of the governor took Yahushua into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, Malach of the Yahudim. Now, of course, most of you here know the purpose of them putting that scarlet robe on him was to show forth that he was representative of the red heifer. And of course, that he would went through the furnace of affliction to be those ashes sprinkled upon the people to make them clean. Because at this particular juncture in life, none of us have any of the sacrifices necessary to make you clean, according to what this law says. You don't have the ability to do it. Let me read that to you again. And that's where that Hebrews 9 going to come in at. I'm going to read verse 14 again. This is a law when a man die in a tent. Matter of fact, hold on. I'm going to read verse 4 again. And then I'll drop down about 15 and 16 for just to reiterate it. Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood. Remember, you got to bring in a red heifer without spot, no blemish, never yoke been upon it. So remember, Yahushua never had a yoke on him because he never had sin on him. He had no blemish on him because he never had sin, and he was without spot. Let me get the definition of without spot and blemish. Remember, and all this is representative of he that covereth for transgression seek love. It's the glory of a king to conceal a matter. That the fact that the blood put on the mercy seat or the seat of the kapareth is the seat of atonement, the seat of reconciliation, the seat of covering or purging sin. Now, when we look at spot, tamim, now you'd be complete, whole, sound, unimpaired, innocent, having integrity. So, of course, you know, that's the word for perfect. This red heifer is perfect, complete, innocent, and sin. You know that Pilate said, hey, I have nothing to do with this just man. I don't find no sin in him. He's tamim, perfect red heifer. Then it says no blemish, moom, blemish, spot, defect, or moral stain, physical defect. He had no moral stain. And then, of course, never had no yoke. That is old, that is a yoke that's imposed upon the neck. He was never in the yoke of bondage of sin. We read it earlier. He became sin who knew no sin, but he was never in that yoke of bondage. He never went through that. But let's continue. Verse 5. One shall burn the heifer in his sight, her skin, her flesh, her blood, with her dung shall he burn. The priest shall take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet and cast it in the midst of the burning of the heifer. And then we're going to come over here to verse 9. And the man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and lay them up without the camp. That takes us back to Hebrews 13. Along with what we read in Leviticus 16 with that scapegoat, take him outside the camp when he say, and bear the reproach of a Mashiach. In a clean place, and it shall be kept for the congregation of the son of Yasharal for a water of separation. So those ashes that's put in that hyssop and that scarlet and that water, it was kept. And this was water to purify you from uncleanliness. You don't have that in 2026. Let's back down to about verse 16. Same book of Numbers, 19. Whosoever touch one that is slain with a sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, that shall be unclean 7 days. And for an unclean, they shall take the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and running water shall be put thereunto in a vessel. And a clean person shall take the hyssop and dip it in the water and sprinkle it upon the tent and upon the vessels and upon the persons that were there and upon him that touched a bone or slain or dead or a grave. And the clean shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall purify himself and wash his clothes and bathe himself in water. He shall be clean at even. But the man that shall be unclean and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from among the congregation, because he defiled the sanctuary of Yahuwah. The water of separation have not been sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. It is a perpetual statute unto them that he sprinkle the water of separation, shall wash his clothes. He that touch the water of separation shall be unclean unto even. Whosoever the unclean person touch shall be unclean. And the soul that touch it shall be unclean unto the even. Now, let's hit this John 2, right? John chapter 2. And I guess you can come to 2 and 13, and I'll go hit that Peter about that merchandise, since I mentioned it earlier. Because I just mentioned that for perspective. So to be clear, because I'm not knocking, castigating, casting any aspersions, subliminals, or nothing to nobody who do nothing in the word for any type of monetary remuneration. That's their business. All I can tell you is what we will or won't do. And what we will or won't do will be determined of what we can see written in this book. As I mentioned to you last week, not my personal opinions, not my personal thoughts, or any of that. You know what I'm saying? Because on a personal tip, I don't care if dudes charge for concerts, conferences, or whatever the case they be. That's their business. I really don't care. It's a lot of things that I personally do not care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, it means absolutely nothing to me. I have no emotional investment, thoughts, cares, or concerns about a lot of things that people do in the word. But when it comes to the execution of it according to what's written, that's what I care about, and that's what we have to do. Our personal feelings don't matter. Your personal point of view don't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's something that we have to get in our mind. It does not matter. Again, the greatest example that you can look at is David them trying to bring that Ark of the Covenant up and doing it how they wanted to do it versus how he said to do it. Don't matter what idea we got. Does it line up with what he said, because remember, this is not yours. This don't belong to you. This is not your house. Those are not your people. Guess what? Your wife don't belong to you, blood. Your wife belong to him. Your children don't belong to you, blood. Your children belong to him. You don't belong to yourself. You belong to him. You know how we know that? Because he said you were bought with a price. That kofar, you remember that? That price of a life? The ransom of a man's life is his riches. You think that man went through all that suffering? That he bought you, cuz. He bought you. You don't belong. Look at, yeah, that's your wife, them your kid, but in the day, boy, they don't belong to you, cuz. Because you didn't die for them. And you ain't resurrect from the dead for them. You ain't do none of that. You ain't do none of that. So when you get that in your mind, listen, and this is the biggest thing that you have to look at. How you run your house and how you run the house of God, two different things, unless you run your house like you run the house of God. Because you don't got to run, you can run, that's your house. You can run it any way you want to run it. But you can't run the house of God any way you want to run it. You got to run that how he said to run it. And that's why I think a lot of individuals in the word, whether Christian or Hebrew, get the game twisted. They get the game twisted. That's why he said you can't be no novice if you're going to seek the office of a bishop, because you got to run the house like he said to run it. The man was very emphatic about telling Moses, do this according to the pattern that I showed you in the mount. Do it just like this here. Remember, Moses didn't get to go in the promised land because he told him to speak to the rock, not strike it. These are examples of when you do things according to how you want to do it, you could be costing yourself because he told you to do it like this. Well, I think this would be better. I didn't ask you what you thought. You know what I'm saying? I didn't ask you what you thought because this is his house. He paid for it with his blood, and all of us are a part of his house. So we have to fit into his will, not make our will fit into his. You know what I'm saying? Just telling somebody that today, like that's what people get the game twisted. Is we want to do things how you want to do it. I was really referring to them like, you know, a lot of men are just assumed to be leaders because they're men. But when you run into a man that has a level of structure, order, and discipline in his life, and you dealing with a young woman and she may not be accustomed to that, if she didn't have a father, she's going to resist that from him. And she's going to call him controlling and manipulating because she doesn't understand that that's a man you're dealing with. And that's how he operates. So a lot of people from the outside looking in, when they look at Yahuwah, that's how they look at him because he has a strong order, discipline, and structure that he's not compromising for you, that he's not bending for you, that he's not going to be, well, it doesn't matter. He's not doing that. When he said he's an austere man, he's rigorously self-disciplined and uncompromising, that's exactly what he means. So when he tell you that a steward must be found faithful and he set you as a steward of his house, he expects you to be rigorously self-disciplined and uncompromising to running his house according to the way that he wanted to run it because he trusted that to your care because that don't belong to you. You know what I'm saying? And that's where a lot of people who preach the word get the game twisted. That congregation don't belong to you. Them people don't belong to you. These are valuable items, like it says in Psalms, that the death of his saints is precious in his sight, meaning that they're valuable. That's another reason why I don't be liking sometimes when people remove the word godly and say yali when you're not saying godly is kased. That's a faithful one. That's not a self-existing one when you change it. You should just say the Hebrew word that there or just say this is a faithful one. Because those who are faithful are valuable to him because they're faithful to him and his ways and his doing and his righteousness. That's valuable to him. That's a prized possession. You understand what I'm telling you? So anybody who he give to your care to watch over, you got to understand you're watching over something that's precious to him that don't belong to you. That house don't belong to you. Them people don't belong to you. So that means you have to care for it and operate it and move it according to how he say to do it. Because that's his. You just a caretaker, my nigga. At the end of the day, man, you a manager, cuz. You's a supervisor. That's what you are. Period, point blank. You know what I'm saying? And I'm mentioning that because we like to elevate preachers here and pastors here because of the society that we live in, and you're not understanding that functionally their job is a caretaker. They're a caretaker. They're there to care for the people and to watch over another man's possession. That's why I say if you ain't been faithful with that which is another man's, who will give you that which is your own? And if you've been faithful over a little, then he'll give you a lot because you'll be faithful over much. See, that's why Solomon prayed to ask wisdom to judge his people in 1 Kings. That's a fact. Because he said, how can I be able to judge such a many people? Let me grab that for you before I read this John 2, and then I can read Psalms 119. And that's how we have to look at that. And this is just to give us to have the proper mindset. You know what I'm saying? It's just to get the proper mindset. This is 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 5. After that, Psalms 119 and 1. What's up, my boy? What's up, my boy? And Gibeon, Yahuwah appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and Elohim said, ask what I shall give you. Solomon said, you have showed unto your servant David, my Abba, great mercy, according as he has walked before you in truth and in righteousness and uprightness of heart with you. And you have kept for him this great kindness that you've given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, you have made your servant Malach instead of David, my Abba. And I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or to come in. And your servant is in the midst of a people which you have chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and bad, for who is able to judge this so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon asked this thing. And Elohim said unto him, because you have asked this thing and have not asked yourself a long life. It says, he's sharing the book in Ellie because I was called to give a permission on two brothers being killed in the. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. That was that. I don't think he was in there. Mama Steph mentioned in those two young men, right? Two brothers, actually born on the same day, 5 years apart. And they got killed on the same day because the sister got into a domestic violence situation. And she called her brothers. And they came over there and they got in an altercation with the dude. Dude went back to his car. This was in Miami and Liberty City to be exact. And came back to the apartment, knocked on the door. They opened the door. He killed them both. Now, I was asked, like, were they wrong for going? And there's really no right or wrong in that type of situation because now one sister mentioned, so should they have not came and the sister be killed? And unfortunately, it shows how some women view their male family members and or friends, that they're utilities just to be cast away. Because they did. And whatever kids or woman they may have had, they're without. And that don't get to be considered because at that point you're saying that this woman's life is more valuable than theirs. Now, in my estimation, those gentlemen only mistake was they didn't bring a gun with them. And as Mama Steph can tell you, and I know my daddy done told me this, domestic violence situations are the most volatile situations that an officer could come into because that's a highly emotional and volatile environment. You know what I'm saying? In that situation, they could have just called the police. But you know, these hood people, so they're not going to call the police. You know what I'm saying? They're going to go handle it themselves. Are they wrong to go in and handle that for their sister? No, they're not wrong. The situation just went down, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? Because they lost their life. Because me personally, at this stage of my life, I would just call the police. I'm not going to go over there and do nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because I already got to know that if I go over here, I got to be willing to kill this man. Because I don't know what he got on his mind. So I got to be willing to kill him. We've had this conversation before this situations. I told y'all this before. If you're going to go into a domestic violence situation, man, with your people, man, you have to go into that with the mindset of you got to be willing to kill this man. And if you know you're not willing to do that, you need to call the police. You know what I'm saying? And what I say when I say that is because of you don't know how that situation. You think you just gonna beat Buddy up and that's gonna be the end of it. And that's a mistake that a lot of people make. That you think that you could just jump on this dude and he gonna be like, you know, they right, man. I did put my hands on their daughter or on their sister. Nah, man. You don't know how buddy gonna respond to that. And you got to be prepared for that. And a lot of times people go to think, oh, we whooped that nigga, it's over with. If he has the malignity of mind to put his hands on a woman he say he love and care about, he ain't gonna have no problems doing nothing to you. He gonna have no problems doing nothing to you. And see, we don't be thinking about that because that be your pride. You be like, that nigga ain't gonna do nothing to me. I'm not taking that chance, so I have to be ready to do something to him. Because you think that man just gonna let you jump on him and he just gonna go his way? Some dudes will, some dudes won't. But like I said, it's not a right or wrong, because they wouldn't have been wrong if they didn't go, and they weren't wrong for going, and unfortunately, they died because of it. Like, it ain't really nothing to say. So it goes back to what's being discussed, but I don't hear about, especially when you fall in love and attachment. Yeah, that conjunct can be very dangerous. And that's why I've always told you ladies, I've always told y'all, you do not want a man who is obsessed with you. You don't really want a man who's emotionally attached to you, because that man will hurt you. Now, will he hurt you 100% of the time? There's not 100% of anything outside of Yahuwah and taxes and death. You know what I'm talking about? But boy, it's a strong likelihood, man. And that junk sound cute, and that junk might look a certain type of way because you see some woman posting that junk on the internet whole time. That nigga might be jackhammering her. When I say jackhammer, I'm talking about Goldberg's wrestling move. You understand me? The jackhammer, man. Straight him down, power bombing him. Like straight up. Verse 11, 1 Kings 3. Elohim said unto him, because you have asked this thing, and you have not asked for yourself long life, neither have you asked riches for yourself, nor have asked the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern judgment. And that's what we got to have, you dig? Psalms 119:1. I'm for real, bro. Because it's a lot of people be seeing people, you see people post this and post that, and you be thinking, oh man, they got a great situation the whole time he beating that woman up. Well, she beating him up. You know what I'm saying? You don't be doing. You gotta remember, man, people post what they want you to see. There's very few people gonna post the hard, difficult times of their life. You know what I'm saying? It's very few times people gonna post they failures, man. Like I said, man, I was telling a little homie this today, man, because she in the career path, man. She work up there to the gym. That if I would have had the opportunity to maximize as a youth, like I would have desired to, that's what I would have done, which is been a sportscaster. Because when I seen John Madden for the first time, I was like, so you mean to tell me I can go to a football game, watch it for free, and be paid to talk about it? Sounds quite outstanding to me. Do you know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, now telling me like, hey, you want to work at ESPN? That's cool. But you also have a platform of your own where you do your journalistic work. You can give time to your platform. And if you, and then, because you know what I'm saying? In this day and time for these type of things, y'all got it better. Because see, ain't no newspapers like back in the day. So people like you see, like Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and all them, they were columnists on newspapers. Ain't no more columnists no more. Ain't no more beat writers no more. That doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? But what you do have is the internet to be able to actually do the same thing. And if you actually want to work for these networks can come to you. But what I told this nigga is the same thing that most people get caught up in life is, and that you worried about failing. If you fail, so what? So what? So what? You failed. Okay. What did you learn from this situation so you can come back and perform better? Because you know that most of the people who gonna have something to say, a nigga who ain't even in the game. This nigga didn't even get drafted. This nigga wasn't even an unsigned free agent. This nigga's too scared to even attempt to try out for a team. And you worry about what this nigga gonna say? Because I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. People who in the game ain't gonna talk about you if you fail. Because if they a real one in the game, they're going to help you learn from your mistakes so that you can come back and perform better. Because remember, that's what it said in the word. He said, lest you stop. And they say, this man wasn't able to finish the build. Or like you seen with the men of Nehemiah, because they won't have something to say. These niggas not even in the game. See, some of y'all dealing with that with people, your friends and family, co-workers, whoever in the word. These niggas not even in the game. Why you give a damn about their opinion? Why you give a damn about what they think or what they got to say? They're not even playing. They're not even in the league, my nigga. They're not even in the league. They don't know how to stem a route. They don't know how to read a cover two. They can't see a zone blitz at the line. This nigga can't decipher a curveball from a splitter. He can't recognize a double team and swing it to the open man in the corner. And you worry about what these niggas gonna say if you fall? What's wrong with you? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Your focus got to be on, I have an objective and I'm after that. And outside noise, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because the people who have something to say are niggas who not even in the game, my nigga. They're not even in the game. They don't even have the courage to try. They don't even have the courage. Man, a lot of times, man, like we talk about this here, man, like repentance in and of itself is a revolutionary act. Because revolutionary just means to rebel. So you're rebelling against the world and you're rebelling against sin and you're rebelling against wickedness. That in and of itself, by definition, is a revolutionary act. Why are you scared of niggas who scared of revolution? Why you care about what they got to say? And just on the natural side of things, man, if it's something you want to go for in life, what you care what they got to say? Let me tell y'all something. And I ain't just saying this because Mama Steph here, right? Mama Steph done had the courage. She done probably wrote about 20 books in the last 6 months. And you got people who will be like, you making this up because you said you hit #1. But she had the courage to do it. So even irregardless if she didn't sell one book, she had the courage that I had an idea and I went for it and I brought it to pass. And whether I sold one or sold 1,000, I did it. You don't have the courage to do it. You got the only courage you got is to talk about somebody who doing something. So what does that actually say about you as an individual? You understand what I'm saying? So when we take this and we pertain this to godliness, man, because sometimes we need to hear that. Because that's what she said, like, I needed to hear that. You got to go for what you want. Because she just mentioned, I don't want to be stuck working at this gym. Because, you know, when you're young, you have visions. Like I was telling Trad it earlier, man. Like, with most of y'all, I ain't that much older than you. So it's like, okay, that's the big homie, that's bro, that, you know, maybe your uncle. But now it come across people like, well, you young enough to be my child. Because I got peers who, like, try to tell him, like, heard some young kids say, oh, you was born in the 1900s. And he's like, he said that just hit him like, you got kids who weren't even born in the 1990s, 1980s or 70s. They born in the 2000s, 2010s. You know what I'm saying? Like that junk hit you different. You realize, like, damn, I do got friends who got 28, 29, 30-year-old children. They adults. Like good adults too. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at that, man, and you see people who younger, man, you can start to reflect on when you was that age. Because you be like, hey, man, you got some, man, go for that junk, my nigga. Bump all that junk, what you got going on, what this person talking about. You got to go for it. If you win, you win. If you don't, you don't. But I'm telling you, if you talking about coming to serve Yahuwah, you go for it, and you really go for it, you're going to win. You're going to win. If he walking with you and you walking with him, you're going to win. So it don't matter what these niggas on the sideline talking about. Why is you listening to them? Why is their opinion valid and important to you? They're not even in the game, blood. They're not even in the game. They're not even in the game. Why is you listening to people who have no courage, man, to do nothing? They ain't got no courage to do nothing. All they want to talk about is what somebody else is doing or not doing, according to this, that, there, and the third. But nigga, what is you doing? And I ain't saying what is you doing this for fast. Oh, you can't say nothing to me because you're not doing nothing. Why you don't have the courage to go do what you talking about, what somebody else doing, if you seem to think that you can do it better than them? Where your courage at? Where is it at? So when you turn around and you look at that, that's what we can impart to our babies, man. Have the courage to stand for righteousness. Have the courage to stand for godliness. Have the courage to stand for holiness, irregardless of what anybody has to say. And then when it comes to natural things, have the courage to excel in your studies, man. Have the courage to excel in whatever endeavor that you want to put your hand to. Go excel in that and stop worrying about if you're going to fail. All failure is instruction. Failure just tell you did something wrong. What do you need to correct? That's it. Same people, you know, as cliche as it is, man, when people share that meme of babies don't quit trying to walk because they fall. They just get up and try it again. You know what I'm saying? So get your behind up, nigga, and stop crying. You know what I'm talking about? And try it again. Like, you got to stop living in the dumps and the war is me. I can't do this and I can't do that. You can't do it because that's what you're telling yourself. So, of course, you're not going to be able to do it. So you have to stop speaking defeating words in your own brain, because eventually you'll believe it and it'll become your reality. But Psalms 119:1. Baruch are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of Yahuwah. Baruch are they that keep his testimonies, that seek him with the whole heart. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. What does it mean to be undefiled in the way? And on top of that, that junk be making a nigga feel old too. And that's Tamim again. Complete, whole sound, perfect. Blessed are those who are perfect in the way. Come back to John chapter 2. That junk definitely make a nigga feel old. You be like, damn, you could be my son, boy. You could be my daughter, boy. God damn. You know what I'm saying? That junk hit different. Y'all ain't at that. Some of y'all might be at that point if they like teenagers or something. And you be like, dang, if I had you when I was young. But that junk hit different. You somebody, you be like, boy, if I had you in my 20s. You know what I'm saying? I cross somebody and they 24, 25 years old. Like, boy, I could have had you when I was 21, 22. You know what I'm saying? I say, man, I just seen a girl I went to school with post her son, man. He going to FSCJ to be a firefighter. I remember when she had him. That was 1998. That was 1998. That boy is 28 years old, man. I remember when she was pregnant with him. Know his daddy and all that there, man. Like, bro, that boy 28 years old, boy. That's literally almost 30 years ago, man. We graduated high school in 1998. She got pregnant late 97. I know chicks who had babies when I was in 11th grade in 97, some in 96. Like, man, you know what I'm saying? Shoot, man, my dog, my barber, you know what I'm saying? His first wife, that's my homegirl too. I remember she was pregnant with her son. They grandparents now, man. She had that boy in 1999. This boy 27 years old. You be like, God damn. You know what I'm saying? Time be moving around here, man. But John 2:13. And the Yahudim Passover was at hand, and Yahushua went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen, sheep, and doves, and the chargers of money sitting. Of course, we talked about that. That's in Deuteronomy 14. And when he made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables. And he said unto them that sold, take these things hence, make not my Abba's house a house of merchandise. Come over here to 2 Peter chapter 2. There it is, 2:1. 2 Peter 2:1. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that brought them, bring upon themselves swift destruction. Many shall follow their pernicious ways, of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of, and through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you. whose judgment now of a long time linger not, and their damnation slumber not. So, of course, he just said, don't make my Abba's house a house of merchandise. Peter said, these same men who deny the Lord and bring upon themselves swift destruction in their pernicious ways that'll cause the Darak of a moth to be evil spoken of, that through their lust, they're going to come with fake words, make merchandise of you. Now, I'm not saying everybody that does particular events and things of that nature are like that. I'm just saying that he's saying that that's out there, because we're not going to put that on people in a mass way. Pernicious is opalia, destroying, utter destruction, perishing, ruin, destruction of money, the destruction which consists of eternal misery and hell. So these people have ways that lead to death, that lead to hell. But when you deal with making merchandise, that is emporio to go trading, to travel, to business, to make traffic of, to use a person or a thing for gain, to deal in, to buy and sell, to make merchandise. Then come back to John. Let's see what this word for merchandise was right there, man. And it is emporion, a place where trade is carried on, a seaport, a mart. And that's the thing that we would have to sit back and look at. We can't, which a lot of these things that take place are not actually done in synagogues and assemblies and nothing like that. But we can't make this man house a house of merchandise. This ain't a house of trade. That's not what this is for. Come over here to Mark 16, because I almost missed that out with the sprinkle of uncleanliness. And maybe what we read in Numbers 19 will make sense of why this is the Lord said this in Mark 16 and 15. And after that, we'll go to Hebrews 9 and 5 when we get off here. Remember, because we were reading, you need a red heifer for the purification for certain uncleanliness to be clean. Hey, that's a fair assessment, my G. Yeah, like what he said in Timothy Facts, when he say, hey, and those who think gain is godliness, they have pervert and corrupt minds. And he said, leave them alone. That man said, get away from them. You know what I'm saying? He said, get away from them. But nevertheless, Mark 16, and I make it 14. Afterwards, he appeared unto the 11 as they sat at meat and upbraided them with their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they had believed not them which had seen him after he was risen. And he said unto them, go you into all the world and preach the basar to every creature. He that believe and baptize is saved. He that believe not shall be damned. Notice that he said, he that believe and is baptized shall be saved. And that's what we read in the law in number 19. If you get that water of purification, or water of separation, which is the water to purify you from ceremonial uncleanliness, then you can be able to enter into the tabernacle of the congregation. But if you go into the tabernacle of congregation and you had not been sprinkled with the water of separation, you're going to die. So this is the part why he say, hey, man, line up with the law. Hey, if you believe and you baptize, you'll be saved. But if not, you're damned. It's a hell of a simple thought process for a so-called believer to have that gain is godliness. You know why they get it like that, blood, to be honest with you? Because that's what people push and promote. And because most people don't actually read the word for themselves for real. And because most people are covetous themselves, that's where I come in at. That's why the Lord said, take heed and beware of covetousness, because a man's life don't consist in the abundance of things that they possess. So, especially living in this particular society, we socialize that if you get an increase monetarily, or you able to get this vehicle or this house or go here and do that, God blessing me. You know what I'm saying? But that don't mean that God blessing you, because those very things that you getting could be for your destruction. It also don't mean that God has not blessed you. You know what I'm saying? So it's nuance to it, you know what I mean? But I think it's more so socialization thing, man. I try not to be harsh on people too tough, man. Especially if I know they don't know no better, because we just socialize so weird over here, man, that it's easy for people to fall into faulty thought processes, if you would, man. Especially when you don't really know the word like that. You know what I'm talking about? I said 5. Yeah, Hebrews 9 and 5 is fine. and we'll wrap it up with his here, man. And over it, the cherubims of esteem shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly. Now, when these things were thus ordained, the priest went always into the first tabernacle, accomplishing the service. But into the second, the high priest alone, once every year, not without blood, which he offered for himself and for the errors of the people. The Ruach HaKadosh, this signifying that the way into the Kadash of all was not yet made manifest, while as the first tabernacle was yet standing, which a figure for the time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices, that could not make him that did the service perfect as pertaining to the conscience, which is what we read in in First Peter. Only in meats, he said, traditionally every city has a plain and valley, which symbolizes abundant and increase, so it's natural. But we, indeed, you know what I'm saying? And of course, your law say, he say, if you remember to keep this law, you'll have good success and things of that nature. Then he tell hey, man, there'll be people who the poor always gonna be amongst you, you know what I mean? And then you got the aspect of, you know what I'm talking about? What you call it? Some people got to suffer for the gospel's sake. It's a nuanced deal, man. You know what I mean? We can sit back. I always just recommend, take the idea like he said in Proverbs 30, man. Just give me food convenient for me. Don't give me riches lest I forget Yahuwah. And don't let me be poor lest I steal and take the name of my God in vain. You know what I mean? And just rock it out like that. You know what I'm saying? Facts, though. There's a lot of nuance to it. With a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? We don't want to try to be rigid and not leave, because everybody influence is different and everybody life experience is different. Everything that everybody's seen and been taught is different. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean more than anything. Verse 10, Hebrew 9. Only in meats and drinks and diverse washings and carnal ordinances imposed until the time of Reformation. Now listen, he said in that temple, it was only meats and drinks, that's your sacrifices and your drink offerings, them diverse washings, what we've been reading about, other carnal ordinances, they were imposed on you until the time of Reformation. So what does that mean? Well, what does Reformation mean? Let's look at diverse washings first and foremost. We don't need diverse, but washings is baptismos, a washing, a purification effected by means of water, washing prescribed by the Mosaic law, which seems to mean the exposition of the difference between the washes prescribed by Mosaic law and Christian baptism. So that's what they gave for the definition of baptismos. But I want you to hear Reformation. And Reformation is deorthosis. And what does this mean? In a physical sense, of making straight or restoring to its natural and normal condition, something which in some way protrudes or has got out of line as broken or misshapen limbs, acts of institutions or reformation, meaning to straighten thoroughly, rectification, the Masonic saturation, reformation. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you, and I know most of y'all know what it means to rectify, but this is just for informational purposes. So I'm not letting you know I'm not insulting anybody's intelligence. When you look at rectification, it's the action of putting something right. Putting something right. Resaturation. And that in and of itself is basically the word for restoration. It says this is an archaic French word for restoration. I'll make sure I spelled that right, though. I did not, because they put restauration. So that is not what I wanted. That's why that came up wrong. It's basically restoration, a reestablishment, a rehabilitation. to bring something back to its original state. So what do you think that means? If you're looking at bringing something back to its original state? Well, of course, that would take us back to the first Adam, or like I said, the first dominion in Micah. So when you sit back and look at it, of course, when we think about Jeremiah 7, when he said, I didn't tell your fathers to bring me sacrifices, all those washings for that ceremonial or physical uncleanliness, once a Mashiach rose from the dead for all intents and purposes, that's no longer imposed. I'm going to give you the definition of imposed in Greek right here, man. And I'm going to read this verse again. Now, that is epikamihi, to lie upon, to rest upon, to be laid upon, the pressure of a violent tempest, to press upon, to be urgent, to impose, to press upon. So when we look at the definition of the things that we just read, no, for sure, shoot. Well, I can't tell you ain't got patience and communication on here, but if you know you're working on that with people in the flat, man, just keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm gonna read verse 9. He said, which was with him that the Ruach HaKadosh signified the way into the Kadash was not made yet manifest while the first temple was standing. So what did that mean? While that first temple was standing, all those washings, all them sacrifices, all those things that had to be done because the most sanctified or most sacred of all had not been made plain. He said, but which was a figure of the time then present in which were offered by gifts and sacrifices, which could not make an individual perfect towards the conscience. So what did that mean? All that washing and all that stuff that we would do, that didn't make you perfect in your conscience to be clean in your brain. That's why we read later down in Hebrews 9, when he said if the ashes of a heifer sprinkling the unclean sanctified to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of a Mashiach through the eternal Ruach offered without spot purge your conscience from dead works? Let me look at purge, how they define purge in this particular passage. Now I say this is coming to mind because I was asked about it earlier, and this stuff just went cycling through my brain, especially considering that we had a conversation earlier in the week about cleanse and uncleanse. Purge is kathrizo, to make clean, to cleanse physical stains of dirt, to remove by cleansing, to be free from defilement of sin and from faults, to purify from wickedness, to be free from guilt of sin, to purify, to consecrate by cleansing or purifying, to consecrate, to dedicate, to pronounce clean in the Levitical sense. So our mind should be clean from the word, because if a ashes put in water of a cow can make your flesh clean, because that's all it was for, to make your flesh clean, but it couldn't make your conscience clean, which is what Peter told you, that baptism doesn't put away the filth of the flesh, but a good mind towards God, because you've kadashed your mind. You've made a new one. You've made a new heart and a new spirit. So he said, none of these things could make you perfect. And he said, those things stood in meats, drinks, different washings, carnal ordinances imposed on you till the time of reformation. Now you back to your original state, because Adam didn't need no sacrifices or no cleanliness, no washings, no drinks, no nothing. When he was in the garden, he need none of that. It was unnecessary. Why? Because you were made upright. And those things are for sinners and not for the righteous. But a Mashiach becoming a high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building. So what does that mean? Neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered into the Kadash place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. And that points straight back to that mercy seat. Meaning that once that blood was sprinkled for the reconciliation, that could lead to the gift of the Ruach HaKadosh that would cleanse and purge any man. Way better than any bit of water could ever accomplish. But we're going to stop right here because we had 2 hours. So hallelujah for Yahushua in the word. And I appreciate y'all time. Like I said, man, I bless y'all out of the house, Elohim, in the name of Yahushua. Y'all willing, man, on Shabbat, we're going to start at 12:30. Prayerfully, we could be able to confirm that the doors are open at noon. Just remember, we got to do what we got to do. I think we pretty much got the month of May covered. So praise be to Yahuwah for that. And, I went over this stuff with the cleanliness because I was literally asked about that about 2-3 hours ago. So that's why I did it. You know what I'm talking about? with somebody who got their own situation. It was mainly like, I was like, mainly they got a basement where they got, TVs and stuff. I'm like, just send them down there. You know what I'm talking about? Because I'm like, when people unclean, here, you can go in there where the children at. Peace, brother Omar. You know what I'm saying? And you just sit in there. But the more he went to referencing stuff, the stuff that individual was pushing, and it was mainly more so everybody want to talk about the women being unclean as if they don't live in the house with these women. Like, oh, she unclean, but you not. Like, nigga, are you serious, man? You know what I'm saying? Fact shots, man. Like, you can't be serious, man. You know what I'm saying? Peace, brother Nate. And that junk just be wild to me because a lot of time, man, we get in this junk, man, and we want to get on the women and just say woo 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 woo, and that junk ain't cool, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because even though that might be your wife, that's still your sister in a mashak. Because that was in my mind earlier, and I had something else. Yahuwah Baruch niggas in my mind with Jacob and Esau. Y'all willing, I did with it Friday. But like even with if you sit back and look at it with Abraham and Sarah, and you say, that's not my wife, that's my sister. And he mentioned that's the, hold on, because I want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing. Like when she said she is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And you sit back and look at it in the Masha, like say, who is my father? You finna go somewhere? Hold on. Where you finna go? My mom. Okay, you take me to get something to eat. Really? Thank you. When he said this is peace, brother, on my man, love you too, man. Like when he said this is the daughter of my father, and Yahushua say, who is my mother? Who is my brother? Who is my sister? But he to do the will of his Elohim. And that just show point to you, even though that might be your wife, man, she's still the daughter of your father, cuz, and that's your sister. You know what I'm saying? So you'd have to sit back and look at, would you do your sister like that? So why would you do your wife like that? You know what I'm talking about? And we don't be considering that, because niggas be tripping, bro. You know what I'm saying? Niggas be tripping. That junk be wild to me. Like, oh, she's unclean, this, that, and the third. Nigga, you live with her, cuz. You live with her. You laid up in the bed with her. You thought that skipped over you? And the dudes be talking about, yeah, they ain't got no, house of separation no more. There's a reason why you ain't got no house of separation, because these niggas so goofy. You ain't got no temple to purify yourself, boy. You ain't got no temple to purify her neither. And that was all the plan of Yahuwah. I don't care nothing about you coming in here washing, boy. That washing was to symbolize baptism, man. That's all it was. Now Yahushua done rose from the dead. He done came and presented that blood to this mercy seat, man, in the Kadash place of all. Eternal redemption has been made manifest. Those things are no longer imposed on you. They're no longer imposed. So just weigh and consider, man. But I appreciate y'all. Shalom, Mama Step. I love y'all. I bless y'all at the house of Elohim in the name of Yahushua, man. Shabbat night, man. We make it do what it do, man. Till that time, man. All right, y'all. I'm going to tap in with